Hello, everybody. I know I'm a few seconds early, but I don't care. I'm excited about this slate. This is a fun one. For those of you that don't know, this is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show, where we do a little bit of a walkthrough of today's slate, and then later today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on the pre-lock show, we actually implement what we're actually going to do on this slate. Things like min exposures, max exposures, things of that sort. Really just a way for you guys to see how I'm actually utilizing the DS and what I'm actually doing on that slate. So definitely tune in for that. You have to be a VIP member for that show, so click the description for that. Feel free to use the promo code BOB for a 10% discount. But let's first talk about last night. I keep wanting to talk about this slate because there's so many interesting pieces in it and a lot of ways we can try to get different. But let's look at last night. Last night was a barely profitable slate for me. It was pretty tough. I had Forrest as a core and Denny Avdija as a core, so not great. There might have been another bust in there too. I don't remember. But really, I had one line that really carried the weight. I think it hit like 312 or 315, something like that. So pretty strong line. That was pretty similar to this. So Tyus Jones made a ton of sense once Ja was out. Jordan Goodwin made a ton of sense. That wasn't a shock. The only real shock in yesterday's nut lineup, this was the 100K winning lineup for those of you that don't know. Will Barton made a Will Barton has these kind of nights, so that actually made sense. And so I stopped watching a lot of the games last night because after that first game, I was just like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a good night for me. And so I just kind of turned the TV off and stopped watching. And even this morning, I didn't even check my lines because I was just like, yeah, it was just one of those. And I wasn't upset or mad. I was just like, yeah, I didn't have Barton, so probably going to be an L. But even this morning, like in Discord, people were like, hey, how'd you do? And I was like, yeah, I lost. I'm pretty sure. I was just certain it was going to be a negative day, but had a small profit, which was interesting. And it was because of, like you're saying, Thomas, like Jaren Jackson, Tyus. Jaren Jackson, I was well over the field on. I was like 50%. We talked about Bam Adebayo on the pre-lock show. I didn't increase or force leverage on him, but I did mention him as someone that I wanted to have leverage on the field on. So that helped a lot. Luka was in a lot of my lines, so that made sense too. And then Denny was a core play for me. He did not perform well, so I'm not going to pretend like that was a great call by any means. And then Onyeka Okongwu made a ton of sense when Clint Capella was out. I think yesterday was a very, very winnable slate. I think for me, the news just got a little bit outrageous and I kind of got lost in the sauce. But still, I had a lot of really good lines. Will Barton was just the guy I forgot about. And happens sometimes. I'm not again, I wasn't upset last night. I was just like, I missed on him. That's just the way it is. OS said, do you think Brogdon sits on a back-to-back? We're going to get to that game, man, but there's a chance any of the Celtics could sit tonight. No one's on the injury report as of now that played yesterday, so that's all speculation for me, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see any of those guys sit on a back-to-back when they're playing. They've been on a losing streak too. I don't know. Might need to let a few guys get healthier. But anyway, let's get into this slate, guys. Definitely a fun one and one that I'm excited about with some sneaky pieces here and there, and definitely some areas that we want to focus on due to injuries. So the first game, we have the Kings at the 76ers. And we have De'Aaron Fox questionable for the Sacramento Kings. Alex Len is out. For the 76ers, we have Daniel House probable, and then Tyrese Maxey is still out. So not a ton of injury news here, but some major injury news in regards to De'Aaron Fox. With him being questionable, when he's out, Malik Monk sees the largest increase in usage at 5.5%, then Barnes, then Hoyter. So again, a matchup against the Sixers isn't one that I like to pick on, but it's a 5-game slate, pretty short slate, one where you want to make sure that you're thinking about every team and not forgetting about guys. As of right now, I'm not super interested in having a ton of exposure to the Kings, because guys like Sabonis, they have a tough matchup against Embiid. Fox, it's just not a great spot for them. But if De'Aaron Fox is out, then I would have more interest in guys like Monk, Hoyter, and Barnes. Like I mentioned, I think Keegan Murray could be a little sneaky here. He could potentially be a leverage play for me if I can get out of my own head, because he's been a leverage play for me for a while. Probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had him on there all the time, and he just didn't come through. But I do feel like this is a little bit of a sneaky spot for him, but we'll see. TBD, TBD on that one. And I'm never really too high on guys like Tucker and Niang unless there's injuries and things of that sort. But this isn't the interesting game. But on the 76ers side of it, I think you can't forget about Joel Embiid tonight. When it comes to Embiid and Harden, I don't know which one I'm going to get leverage on yet, but I do want to find a leverage spot on one of them. That could change. We'll talk about it more on the pre-lock show, but I like this spot for him. And 15 and 16% ownership isn't that high on a 5-game slate. All right, guys. Next game, we have the Golden State Warriors at the Bucks. For the Golden State Warriors, we have Draymond Green, probable. Andrew Wiggins is out. Andre Iguodala has been out for a while. That doesn't really matter. Milwaukee Bucks, they have Jrue Holiday, questionable. Huge, huge, huge news. Chris Middleton is probable, so he'll probably play. Wesley Matthews is not on the injury report, and then Ingles has been out for a while. If Jrue Holiday is out, Giannis Antetokounmpo sees a 7.5% increase in assist rate. Middleton sees a 6% increase in assist rate because Holiday is not handling the ball, handling duties as often. And then from a usage rate, Middleton sees a 4% increase, and then Antetokounmpo sees a 2.6% increase. Freaking wild. I don't think Giannis would stay around 12% ownership. He might if the price tag is still scary for a lot of people, but you can attack the Golden State Warriors with bigs. And I don't know. I like the spot for Giannis and Middleton. Middleton at 6,000 is just too cheap. So even if Holiday plays, you're going to have a lot of Middleton on this slate. So yeah, I love this spot for the Bucks. The extra pieces I'm not too excited about. I'll probably have some exposure because I'm sure the DS will like guys like Pat Connaughton, maybe some Bobby Portis if they decide to play bigger, things of that sort. So I'll have some variations, but not too excited outside of Giannis and Middleton. On the other side of things, the Golden State Warriors, they don't really have a ton of injury news unless outside of Andrew Wiggins. The Bucks have allowed the most threes per game since last season. That's kind of wild. They allowed the most threes last season, and they've allowed the fourth least. Okay. Sorry, that was written in a weird way. I was trying to understand it. But you can shoot threes against this Bucks team, even though they're a solid defensive team. So guys like Stephen Curry are going to stand out a little bit more than they already do. Guys like Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, those are the guys I'm slightly more interested in having exposure to on a slate like this, just because I know that that's this team's weakness. Thomas said, should we do a rule where we don't play Embiid and Harden together? So we'll talk about it on the pre-lock show. If I'm seeing, like, that rule makes a ton of sense, but I'm not going to put the rule there unless I'm seeing that combination happening too often. It's a 5-game slate, so you'll see things get weird. So there's a world where Embiid and Harden can both go off. And so I don't like over creating rules, but if I'm increasing my exposure to one of them and I'm still seeing that combination too much, then I'll create that rule. That's typically how I go about it. I don't really create a rule unless I notice there's a problem, especially on a short slate. Also, OS, I know you're probably like, man, Josiah, you always give me like kind of like a lofty answer when it comes to injury news. And to be honest, that's because like injury news, it's something that I care a lot about. I'm excited about it, but I'm not one to predict it. Like, that's not my skill set. But still fun to talk about. Like, Jrue Holiday being out has made this slate, being questionable has made the potential of this slate a lot more exciting for me. So I think we can move on. I think Golden State Warriors will have some interesting pieces, but no one stands out too much for me here. But like I already mentioned, like Clay and Jordan Poole, I already know I'll have some exposure to naturally through the domination station. I might have to force exposure to Steph a little bit. So ideally, I won't have to make him a leverage play, but if I have to, I have to. All right. Next up, we have the Phoenix Suns at the Houston Rockets. So most of you should already know that Devin Booker is out. That is gigantic news for the Suns team. Everyone and their mom is going to be loading up on this Suns team. So in their last game, they went big. They played with Devin Booker was out, and so they played Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Torrey Craig, Dario Sarkchick. I'm probably saying that wrong, and then DeAndre Ayton. That was their starting lineup. They went big. In the past, we've seen them add Cameron Payne to this lineup, and him see an increase in minutes. And so, to be honest with you, I think we're going to see a lot of Sark. I don't know if that's the safest play, but at 3,300, I'm okay with it. I like Damian Lee here a good bit just because I feel like he can fit well into the big lineup and the small lineup coming off the bench. And then Cameron Payne, I'm sure his ownership is going to go up a little bit. Uh, yes, he didn't see a ton of minutes increase in the last game, but that doesn't mean that the coach won't want to switch rotation. Typically, when Devin Booker is out, Cameron Payne is actually the guy who sees the highest usage differential. He sees an 8% increase in usage rate historically. So that's some conflicting data. In the last game, we saw him not have a ton of success, but historically, long term, Cameron Payne succeeds in these situations. I'm going to be over the field on Cameron Payne, hoping they go back to playing some small ball here, especially against a really bad Rockets team. I'm definitely still going to have some exposure to Sark, but I like the low ownership on the guy who historically has the highest usage rate increase. That's just a shot I'll take every day of the week. Uh, Also Bridges. Like McCall Bridges is freaking great. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, like in the 5Ks, but 6,100 is still too cheap against this god awful Rockets team. So yeah, moral of the story is you can play pretty much whatever song you want to, and I'll have a lot of exposure and variations to this team in a lot of different ways. Uh, for the Rockets, Jayshawn Tate is still out. Uh, Jalen Green has been freaking fantastic as of late. He's had a 31.3% usage rate in his last 5 games, which is a major increase from like his 20 to like 25% usage rate that he had towards the start of this season. So it looks like he's getting more efficient, starting to feel more comfortable and confident. I don't like playing guys against the Suns too often just because they're a solid defense, especially with Chris Paul on the roster still at his age. Uh, but I'll probably just let the DS decide my fate on guys like him and Porter who are viable, but not guys that I'm super excited to play. All right, guys, another interesting game with the New Orleans Pelicans at the Utah Jazz. With the Pelicans, we have Brandon Ingram out still. McCollum went off on Sunday. Uh, Whereas like Williamson is really competing for an MVP award at this point. I think both are viable. I really like Zion in this spot. The Jazz have not been great against bigs so far this season. Primarily, we've been liking to attack the Pelicans, or we've been liking to attack the Utah Jazz with the center position. But Zion can switch between the two, and Valanciunas' minutes are a little volatile, so I don't hate that. I'll also probably have some exposure to Valanciunas, but I don't see myself having a ton of leverage just because of how volatile he can be. CJ McCollum is fine from a high upside ceiling standpoint, so I'll have some exposure, but he's not the most exciting play for me on this slate. On the Utah Jazz side of things, looks like Lauri Markkanen was not on the injury report. Jordan Clarkson was not on the injury report. Mike Conley was not on the injury report. And they're looking pretty healthy outside of Sexton. The Pelicans are a really, really, really good defensive team and not one that I like to pick on too often. I might have a little bit of exposure to guys like Clarkson and Markkanen just due to their upside, but that's about it. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything about this game. I think Zion's really the main guy that stands out for me here. And then the rest of these guys are fillers. If Herb Jones is probable today, if Herb Jones plays, then I don't think a guy like Dyson Daniels is very viable anymore. But if he's out, then Dyson's still viable. This isn't really important from a DFS standpoint, but Jose Alvarado has been fantastic from a defensive standpoint this season. I don't know if anyone has had a chance to watch, but impressive for sure. All right, last game on the slate, guys. And then this one's probably the one that I'm not as excited about. Because this is a back-to-back for the Celtics, there's a chance they'll want to rest some of these guys. Also, it looks like there's a chance Robert Williams will be returning for the Celtics. He's TBD as of right now, returning from his knee injury. He will 100%, if he plays, he will be on a minutes limit to some degree. He's just been dealing with that knee for too long for them not to put that on him. But him returning potentially just makes me even less interested in this team. I am hoping we see maybe a Tatum sits or a Brown sits or a Brogdon or Smart or even White sits, just so this game would be a little bit more interesting. I love having exposure to the Hammer game, but the last few slates I just haven't needed to, and it's gone okay, but I like having exposure just so I have something else to do throughout the night. I think on the Lakers side of things, I'm only interested in playing Anthony Davis when they're all healthy. So yeah, that was pretty easy, pretty simple. I mean, I hope it's this easy by the time we get to the pre-lock show, because I feel like I pretty much know what I want to do on this slate already. To some extent, there's just a few places I want to dig a little bit deeper into and solidify those leverage plays. So definitely do check out the pre-lock show later today, guys. I'll be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I always post a link in the NBA Talk channel. So I look forward to seeing everybody then, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and good luck. Appreciate you guys. Bye.